risk.
Well, how do you think things would be different if, Hedron, Icosa, Maxi, Team, none of this existed, there were no hex derivatives, things like that. How do you think that would be different for hex? And, again, you have some people in the community who are like, oh, this is splitting, which I mean, it is splitting buying pressure. It's or power. It's just it's a fact. But what kind of trade-off are you making with it? Are you improving things with a positive feedback loop, or are you just taking money away that's never going to come back? There's a difference between the two, but how are these derivatives? What is the case for them making hex better and short term or long term, and what is the case, I guess, against it? If you can describe it.
Yeah, so they make hex better. I mean, kind of what I was describing. The user benefits, those are better, and the keeping more money in the hex economy than what would otherwise be bleeding out in gas fees. That's like the big benefit, and that to me pretty much outweighs any type of downside. But also, with these pools, it simplifies the user experience. Especially with these perpetual pools we have coming up, it drastically simplifies the user experience of staking hex. It allows participants to earn more hex than they would staking on their own, and it attracts more users into staking that otherwise are holding liquid because of fees. And so those are some pretty critical benefits. I also think that these perpetuals that we're launching, base, trio, lucky, and desi, so 1 year, 3 year, 7 year, and 10 year stake pools, they introduce new avenues for onboarding users. These are it's because we're equipped with like a new sales pitch, less fees, higher earnings, easier to use. You just either hit buy or you hit mint, depending on if you're minting the coin or you're just going to buy it. So, those I think are positive for bringing new people into the hex economy. And then, so as far as downsides, I don't think that these pools divert funds away from like hex, because it's not like wrapped, because these are basically wrapped. It's basically wrapped hex. So kind of like WETH, like wrapped ETH. Like wrapped ETH doesn't, take money away from it because it is it, and like these pools are hex. Like they're fully backed. They're actually over, because they earn more than they started with. They're actually like over collaterals.
How does wrapped ETH work? Just for people who don't know.
So
Like, is it a derivative of ETH, or is it bridged over ETH?
No, so wrapped ETH is where you deposit ETH into the smart contract, and the smart contract issues you one wrapped ETH. And the purpose of wrapped ETH is because Ethereum itself is not ERC20. It's just ETH, like it's its own thing. But wrapped ETH is ERC20. And so wrapped ETH is what smart contracts that are based around the ERC20 standard use as a placeholder for ETH. So wrapped ETH is,
so
it's fully redeemable 1-to-1. So
okay, but for this example, you gave wrapped ETH an example, but yeah, I could say, well, people aren't choosing to buy wrapped ETH versus ETH; they're buying ETH and then they're wrapping it. Versus, if you're choosing to buy Hedron, Icosa tokens and things like that, or a Maxi and Team, you're choosing one over buying, hex.
I'd say that applies more for Team, because holding these coins is like, if you're choosing to buy that, it's like you're buying it from someone who had already minted the for instance base, so like you're buying it from someone who had already minted it, so that person had already bought it, and then that person's selling anyways, so like you're kind of just taking their place. And
maybe that's the disconnect: people taking the place instead of actually buying something that was no history of hex involved. You're sort of taking the place in the line of that person. Is that what you think a lot of people are missing in this argument?
Yeah, because I mean, and also I think really it comes down to choice, and also like expectations of others. Like I don't have the expectation that anyone is going to buy the things that I like, and I would never put that on people to only be putting positive buy pressure on the assets that I tell them to. It's their keys, their cheese, their choice. So I actually don't, I personally don't even, put myself in that situation to determine what people should and shouldn't be buying, because that is their choice. If I wanted to make that choice for them, then I should reach them with a better message, reach them with, better, be more persuasive. And so I like it really that's kind of what it comes down to, to me. I think that the amount, like with these perpetuals, because it provides a lot of user benefits to staking, that's the key benefit. And but also because it provides an improved user experience, that that can make it a stronger thing to onboard into. And so if people care about getting people to onboard into it, then improving the feature set, reducing fees, improving the the earning capacity of the hex, like that's kind of the thing that it's intended to do. And because you can't force anyone to buy anything, and having that expectation that people are only going to buy the things that you have and what the community wants people to buy, that's there's kind of some disconnect there. But I think that these are more the purpose of these pools is to boost the financial utility of hex, and so that's really the purpose. And it has the side effect of having like a good sales pitch that you can promote to new users who could be onboarded into hex through these systems. And so that's that's the key benefit. But it really comes down to people are free to make their own choice on what they buy, and people are free to buy dog shit if they want, frankly. And so
they will sell it to you. There's a market.
Yeah, because I mean there really is hot. There's what all this stuff show. It shows that there's a lot of appetite to take on more and more risk. Because really, I think the reason why we're seeing this like influx of all these new coins, I think there's stuff that we're making where we're actually solving like a direct problem that's existed already, and we're building upon the feature set of hex by introducing the liquid staking and reducing the fees through that. But there's this other class of of new coins and new things that are like entirely separate, and they try to link it, but like, oh well, we're going to bring awareness to hex by marketing to this avenue of people. But and because people participate in those, or so these like Rube Goldberg machines, where it's like, okay, funds are going to move from here to here, and then it's going to pump the price of the thing that you want to pump. Like what they show is that there's a lot of appetite for people to lever up the risk because they want to lever up the reward. So a lot of these people that are entering these things are probably people that they saw the the 10,000x price move. Maybe they bought the top and they want to achieve that high gain. And so they, whereas hex is like by now relatively low risk, they want to take on more risk in order for the chance of having that like really high multiple. Right. And so that's really what it is. Like, that's why there's so much of this stuff going on now, is because, there's a lot of people that saw those big gains, but didn't get them personally. And so those people have the appetite to just take on more risk. And so that's kind of why I think we're seeing a lot of this stuff. And it really comes down to, people's choice. And then people, they take on that risk on their own accord. People, that's kind of what I think the beauty of crypto is that people take their own risk. And it's like you can, persuade them. I personally try to, just produce higher quality, better products, that can, it's like kind of even what Richard used to say, like the best way to, squeeze out scammers is to introduce things that, get people into that before they can reach the scams. Like not anything is a scam, but just that, building stronger competitors, I think is to me, that's how I approach it, rather than trying to tell people what they should and shouldn't buy, or like what's good or what's bad, because I don't have the expectation that anyone's going to, buy the things that I want them to buy.
Well, so is there a way to see the difference between the two, of something that's, eating capital from hex, and then something that is actually, maybe they're marketing that way, but it doesn't really have that effect, and then versus the actual positive feedback loop? Is there a way to look at a project and evaluate it and determine, hey, this is actually good for hex, or this is not good for hex, and they're just kind of like trying to act like it is?
Yeah. So, I mean, if it directly adds features that make the use of hex more attractive, then that's probably it.
There's a lot of hopium that goes into this stuff too. A lot of like, oh, this is going to bring onboarding because of this, or we're going to get this community, or this to this. how do you tell the difference between like this, like, is it at the contract level? You have to look at like, what does the contract do? Are you taking the place of someone who has made a 555 stake or, stuff like that? Or are you just like, we're hoping to onboard these people because it has something to do with HEX?
Yeah. I mean, I think that like, that if it's purely on just like like that it's going to drive awareness, factor, then, that's kind of pie in the sky. That's kind of hand wavy. But if it's like, directly enhancing HEX, like, as like an asset or as a contract, it is, utilizing HEX to, like as the HEX contract was written to, boost the user experience and keep money in the HEX economy. I think that's good. But it's, like it's all kind of up to people to kind of, that's, just my perspective. And that's kind of, how, at least how I approach, building, these pools, for instance. Like it was purely to solve a user problem in HEX. Like when I ended my, like, especially during peak bull market, and I ended a HEX stake and it cost hundreds of dollars. I was like, wait, if this costing me $100 and everyone else who ends,
and I'm really smart,
$100, and then I went in the chat and asked, I was like, wait, why did my stakes used to cost less to end than now? And they're like, oh, every day that goes by costs a little bit more gas. And so that's, that's the big problem, is that, and especially if you calculate, because like there's the gas price and then there's the number of units of gas that a contract call uses. So when you add up the amount of gas units that are used by a HEX stake for a max length stake, so to end a max length stake, if the current Ethereum blocks remain at the same size, meaning they have the same gas, it's called the gas limit per block. It's the, how many units of gas can be included in a block. At the end of a max length stake, at the current, gas, at the current like opcode costs and the current gas limit per block, only 2 max length stakes will be able to fit on a single Ethereum block. So, every day, especially lately, there have been like 100 max length stakes per day, mainly driven by like, the ICOSA, like minting ICOSA with the max length stakes. So during those days, every day, 50 blocks, entire full blocks, it would take 50 full blocks just to process the 100 max length stakes ending each day. And so imagine that one that, who knows what other NFT or DeFi or, whatever the next like hype trend acronym is in crypto that may be competing for for that scarce block space. And then also, just like all the Hexicans trying to end their stakes to front run each other as they end. The gas price, like the Ethereum network, could come to a grinding halt as a result of the HEX stakers, because if only 2 HEX stakes can fit per block, who knows what changes between now and then? But like, assuming that everything stays as is, because that's kind of all you can base it on. You can have hopium and expectations that someone's going to fix it, but why would you make your product cheaper when people are more than willing to pay more? It's like, so the HEX stakes alone could just be massively driving the gas price up, because, regardless of gas price, if only 2 stakes can fit per block, and there's only, how many, every 10 seconds there's a block. So how many is that per day? And that doesn't even,
maybe this is good for PulseChain though. Is this good
yeah.
for PulseChain?
I mean, well, so I think on PulseChain, they're probably going to increase the gas limit, but still, I mean, you could increase that by 5 times, then okay, 10 stakes can end per block. So because there's capacity, because those block, it's directly related to how much memory and bandwidth that those node operators need. And so
nodes better be beefy.
Yeah, yeah. So the larger it gets, then the less, the less number of total nodes that people can reasonably have, and so the network could be, and that's a risk. That's like a centralization risk. Like centralization in supply of assets can be a good thing, but centralization in the network probably not such a good thing, because then it's like less targets to go after. Whether you're a hacker or a government or whomever, just trying to suppress the activity going on there. So, and also since PulseChain hasn't launched yet, I don't even really consider it even a thing yet. Like it only until it's live, then I'm not factoring that into like how I'm planning, my life and the assets that I'm building, because that's it
You're
just
not
doesn't.
taking out a bunch of mortgages. You're not taking on a bunch of debt to make sure you can just murder your PulseChain bags as soon as it comes out.
Yeah. So
people don't do that. Do not set up events in the future with money that rely on speculative dates of launch. Please don't do that.
Yeah. So but even if it's still over there, it's gonna maybe they'll be processed faster because the blocks will be happening faster and they'll have a little bit more capacity. But still, like that's a huge amount. And then so that's the main reason why people should be pooling, is because like but it's kind of a fundamental for HEX, but it's going to come at a lot of people's expense. And that's really what I worry, is that whomever's, because whether they're just people staking on their own or whoever ends up with all these really small max length HSIs, it's like, if everyone's trying to end the stakes, then that's going to run the gas price up, because there's, finite amount of block space for people to bid on. So it makes
PulseChain bull run. PulseChain bull run in 2035 is everyone ending their 15-year or 10-year stakes and stuff.
Well, it's more of like a HEX bull run, because what happens is that if the higher the gas price goes, then the more HEX stakes that are infeasible to end, because why would you end it when you could just buy more HEX with that gas money? And so that is HEX that will just bleed out to the people that can afford the stake, to end the stake. And the people that are going to be able to afford, that are most likely to be able to afford to end the stake, are the people that participate in stake pools, because instead of one person per stake end that you have to pay for, you're doing that as a group. So it's kind of like, it makes me sad that it's going to come at a lot of people's expense, especially like there's a lot of people that have been dollar cost averaging into HEX. I see it because, I run that max length stake bot, and I see regularly like 1,000 HEX max length stake. And, whether or not, who knows what the value of the HEX is going to be relative to the gas, but, it's, those people are still, it's just like a big drain on that HEX. So it's good for the people that can afford it, because that is HEX supply that the market was pricing in that it was going to become liquid. But then, as a reality sets in and those makes it feasible to end, then that just, that supply is delayed, and then it's being, extended out, as those late end stake penalties pretty much just punt out that supply into the remaining T shares after that. Then, there's less supply on the market, so it means less people to compete with as a seller, which can, be good for you. That can drive the price of HEX up, which maybe helps solve, maybe that unlocks more stakes that, are feasible to end. But it's a pumpamental for the HEX price, because, basically a lot of people burnt their HEX, but they don't know it yet. They staked max length, or, or maybe they held a HSI max length, bought it in an auction, and they think it's there. And then as they get there, oh shit, it's a bull market. What's all this NFT stuff that's driving the price up? Oh wait, also the Hexkins, they're also driving the price up. And then it's just like, it just bleeds out. And then they're like, well, shit. So that's unattainable. That's the big, while it's beneficial for our pools, like for the more people that stake on their own, it only boosts the value proposition of these pools. But I don't want the value proposition of these pools to come at the regular user's expense. Like that, to me, like that's why I'm trying to solve this problem, is because a lot of people are going to be really disappointed when they come their HEX, even if they can afford it, or maybe, it like wipes years off of their yield. Maybe it turns your 15-year stake into the equivalent of a 7-year stake. If it cut half your yield, then it's like, well, shit, why did I lock it up for 15 years? I could have achieved that with a shorter stake. And so those are the, those are the problems that are directly solved with these. And it's kind of just like a nice side effect that like people continuing to stake on their own and, scheduling a time when they're going to be driving the gas price up. It's like a pump-mental for HEX, and then also a pump-mental for these pool tokens. So that's really the kind of a dynamic that we saw it play out a little bit in this past bull run with the fees, but those were only, at that time, it was only what, like if that was a year ago, those were only 700-day stakes, and when it's 5,555-day stakes, then it's going to be a big problem, because when it gets to the point where only 2 stakes can fit per block, that's a problem. And so that's really what these pools solve, and that's why it's like a critical piece to HEX, I think. And instead of like an adjacent like thing that's kind of siphoning away, it's helping Hexicans keep more of their money.